changing HVAC filters, cleaning gutters, inspecting smoke alarms, all of those maintenance type things that are literally a chore, super important to keep up with, but really easy to lose track of, especially if this is for a vacation rental where you're not physically there every day. So how should you build an efficient system to make sure these things get done? Hi everyone, my name is Lydia. My background as it pertains to this topic is from hosting 2 Airbnbs, having a long-term rental, and also having owned/lived in 2 homes. I've made plenty of mistakes, some more expensive than others, and I remember trying to Google when I first got that first house, how to maintain a home. And there were some lists, but it's so hard to tell if it's overkill. Like, what is the actual bare minimum? What happens if I don't do it? Plus, a list doesn't remind me. What I really wished I had was a practical, comprehensive list that I could take notes on and is set up to keep track of dates. Like, when did I last change my HVAC filter? What size was it again? And can it remind me when I need to do this? After much procrastination, here is my shareable to-do board that I hope can help you avoid making those same mistakes. It is completely free and I'll link it below if you want to follow along. When you click, it'll ask you to register for an account on Trello, which is a productivity tool much like Notion, Asana, and it's also completely free. And you can access it on the phone or on like a desktop or laptop. At a high level, it's a combination of a to-do list, a calendar, a note-taking system that is shareable if you have teammates in your business or if you want to share this with your significant other. Let's walk through my list. I'll explain on some of the frequencies. This should work for both a primary residence or if you're doing this for a vacation rental. My personal goal of making this board/list is to never have to consciously think about when I need to do something again, but instead have a system that reminds me so that it just gets done. First, the initial setup. If you already have a house, feel free to play this part on 2x, just as a quick refresher, and I'll put timestamps below. In the beginning stages, you want to set up some of your most basic utilities, and these are things you should start working on before closing. Electric company, unless you have your own solar panels and battery. That's pretty self-explanatory. A gas company, which could be just a basic connection to gas service, or it could be a tank rental, which was the case, for example, in our Florida house. The latter requires a full inspection with the gas rental company, so you'll want to budget time for that. Water, and this again could be a connection from the city water, or it could be through a well. And if it is a well, you gotta find out, do you own this well? Where is this located on your property? Or is it a shared well? And if so, which neighbors share it? Who services the well? And how does the payment work on that end? Sewer for most people is also a connection, but for some properties you may have a septic tank that either is located on your property or is again shared by neighbors. Similar to the well situation, you want to figure out who maintains this septic tank because they need to come inspect it and take the waste away, and you want to know who to call when you run into issues. Internet, that's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, you just compare the different options you have in the area and pick what suits your needs. If you're doing this for a short-term rental, make sure you test out the internet around the house in different rooms to make sure you're getting sufficient service throughout the property. Sometimes these internet services also don't work as intended. As an example, at the beach house, we had AT&T initially, and it would somehow kick off like the 12th person when too many devices are connected. It's not listed anywhere on the contract, it's not supposed to happen, but it does, and it's such a hassle to guess, and we keep having to troubleshoot with people, and it's extra worrisome because what if the thing that gets kicked off is your Ring camera or the entry keypad that's connected to Wi-Fi? Trash and recycle services usually is the same company. You want to figure out if there are specific rules for recycling in your area and make note of the pickup days so that you can share this information with your cleaners and guests. Otherwise, the main thing at the setup phase is just to make sure you get those bins delivered to your house. Besides basic utilities, there are a few services you want to get connected with as soon as you close on the house. First one is a cleaning company, which is obvious if you have a short-term rental. If there are folks you can interview in your initial setup timeframe, that would be the most optimal. You can walk through the space together and talk about your expectations. And even if you're looking at this for a personal residence, it might be nice to have someone come to an initial move-in cleaning. When you click on the cards on this board, you can take notes about what you and your cleaner talked about. For example, how you handle payments, what is included included in the cleaning, what's the fee structure like, how do you deal with the deep clean type things like cleaning the fridge, the oven, the inside of a washing machine. Some cleaners might have trash service where they take the trash with them to dispose of them elsewhere. So find out what that arrangement is and use the space to take notes so you have it all together in one spot. Next, you want to get connected with an HVAC service technician. Because you'll need to do routine maintenance down the road anyway, which I'll talk a little bit more about in the next section, it makes sense to have someone just come out in the beginning stages and do an initial inspection to make sure everything is in good working order before you start. Also, while we're on the topic of HVAC, make sure you document the filter sizes. And if you have 2 units in your home, apparently, they can be different size filters, so make sure you take note of that. Next is a pest control service. Now, pests are kind of different everywhere in different climates, so in some areas, this might be a wait and see kind of approach. For example, here in Minnesota, we don't have a pest control company, and we just call in the summertime sometimes if we need some help removing wasps that are like way high up and we can't reach. And this house does just fine with that. However, in Florida, in talking to our neighbors, it seems like everyone has a pest control company. The 2 places I would look to help you decide whether you need this is A, the seller's disclosure, whether they had a pest control company, and B, just talking to your neighbors. When you initially set up service, usually someone will come and survey the house, make sure there aren't existing pest infestations. They'll spray, they might install a rodent monitor if helpful for your area or if you would like it. And it seems like for most places, a mosquito service is something that's seasonally offered and additional. When you talk to these companies, kind of find out their fee structure. Is it a monthly payment, like a membership type of deal, whether there is upcharge for if you call them out to remove a wasp's nest, for example, or if you need them to spray extra because whatever they sprayed was not effective enough and you're still having problems. And document what you talked about here in the card. Next is a lawn care person. This person would mow and apply fertilizer, apply weed killer to your grass. And again, you need to figure out the details of the fee structure, whether they come weekly or as needed or every other week, whether they have any surcharges for applying the fertilizer, which we didn't realize could be a surcharge until we met this guy in Florida who was charging us to apply the fertilizer that he doesn't even bring. Like, we have to buy this on Amazon, and then he would charge us to apply it, which was mind-blowing. I've never heard of this. So make sure you talk it out and you're on the same page before you start. Another thing to ask is whether they would take care of any weeds that poke through between concrete cracks. That's not technically in the lawn, but it's still kind of related to what they do. And while you have this lawn care person out, ask them what they recommend for the sprinkler schedule if you have a sprinkler system. Is it Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Is it more often than that or less? Are there seasonal adjustments to make? This lawn care provider plus your neighbors are probably your best sources of information on that. The other component to the whole landscaping thing is the trees and the shrubs. Now, while this might not be your most urgent thing to do right away, it's probably a good idea to have an arborist or like a landscape person come out to A, take a look at what trees and shrubs you even have, and B, kind of make an assessment. Is anything diseased? What kind of maintenance is required? Do you need to mulch? Do you cut back your shrubs seasonally? And if so, do they provide the service? How much would that cost? Understandably, you might be worried about a conflict of interest. What if they just tell you you need to do all these maintenance things so that they would have future work to do? I get that. But for the most part, these companies seem pretty consistent between each other for the types of advice they would give. And they also know that you may or may not even hire them to come do this, right? And if they're doing this right, they're more looking to build a long-term relationship and actually help you take care of your plants so that you would keep relying on them year after year. So check with a few different providers, but personally, I haven't had issues with them upselling too many recommendations. Next, we should talk about handy people. During the startup phase, when you might be needing help building furniture or mounting a TV, it's a great time to try out different handy people, and if they're good, make sure you keep their contacts. You can leave them in this card if you would like, so that if you need something in the future, you know who to call. Treat this as a template and make a copy so that you can customize it to what you actually need for your house. Alright, a few more miscellaneous items in the startup phase. First of all, when you're stocking supplies like TP, kitchen towels, and whatnot, make sure you make a note of the more specific things like light bulbs and batteries. What sizes are these light bulbs and batteries, and what devices do they correspond to? You'll want to make sure you always have a backup on hand for each kind of battery, because somehow the battery always run low when you least expect it, and you would have to tell the guests, if you're doing Airbnb, where to find this battery and what size it should be and what to do with it. And it seems to be a more commonly required thing. So the more specific information you save here, the easier time you will have answering these questions. Number 2, you want to check the expiration dates on your smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors. That should be pretty easy. It should be on the device itself. Number 3, if you're doing fire extinguishers, which is a good idea, I think, make sure those are not expired, and also make a note of the expiration date so that you know when you need to replace it. Number 4, on the note of security, change your lock, change the security system subscription if you're doing that, or set up your Ring cameras, that type of a thing. And then number 5, setting up the address changes with the US Postal Service. There is the initial moving address to announce that, hey, this house now belongs to Lydia. And then the second piece of that is setting it up for mail forwarding. So the cheap way of doing it is to do it every 6 months because it's only $1.10 to temporarily forward mail for 6 months. The downside, obviously, is you have to repeat this process in 6 months. There is an option to temporarily or permanently forward mail, but that would be more expensive. For example, an 18-month forwarding period would cost $40. So I'll leave that up to you. And then lastly, if this is a rental, you'll want to finish up any pre-inspection type of prep work. If you've gotten this far and you find this pretty helpful, please consider subscribing. This tells me what you, my audience, likes to see more from me and helps me refine what topics I do more about. Alright, so at this point, your initial setup should be complete, at least from an operational/maintenance perspective. So go refill your coffee, and then when you come back, we will set up your maintenance timetable, which should take literally 5 minutes. Each card has a frequency that I'm suggesting, and you basically go through each of them and put in your due date of when you need to do this thing next. After you've gone through all the cards and set your due dates, you're pretty much set. You can view this on a board form, kind of like this, and as the due dates get closer, they will change to yellow, and if it's overdue, it's red. So it's really easy to see on a color-coded system. Alternatively, you can use the calendar power-up to see this in a calendar format, to see where things lie throughout the year. I love seeing all of this in this comprehensive giant board, and when I complete a task, instead of clicking off the due date, I know it's satisfying, but I think it works better if you just move the due date at that time to like 6 months out if that is your frequency. And if you ever are wondering, wait, did I actually do this thing or did I just set the wrong due date? You can see the history of this card. If you scroll down, you'll see that, oh yeah, I moved the due date like roughly 6 months ago. I must have done it. So this would kind of be your tracking system for when you accomplished these maintenance tasks. I'm gonna go through these cards one by one and explain my rationale for picking what frequency and what I mean by these maintenance activities. So the first one is cleaning the dishwasher. There are these dishwasher cleaning tablets that you can buy and you can put into the dishwasher to run a cycle. That's one way to do it. Alternatively, this can be done manually by your cleaning person, for example. In addition to that, there's this kind of filter trap thing in your dishwasher to catch all the debris that if you don't rinse off your plates before you load the dishwasher, and that also needs to periodically be cleaned out. The recommendation that I found in most places is to do this every month. But obviously there's some variation, right? Depending on how often you use the dishwasher, for a vacation rental, and whether you rinse the dishes before you put them in, where people aren't cooking a huge ton and doing some like super dirty dishes. I think it's reasonable to push this to every 2 to 3 months. Next, we have sanitizing and cleaning the washing machine. There are also tablets that you can use to clean the washing machine drum itself. Whether or not you do that part, there is still some manual aspect to like wiping it down and making sure the gasket is not full of gunk. Again, the frequency will depend on usage. At our primary residence, we have to do this every month because we pretty much do laundry every day, and so the washing machine gets dirty really fast. For a vacation rental, however, there are obviously loads of towels and bed sheets and whatnot, but the guests themselves aren't doing a huge amount of laundry. They might be washing their bathing suits, they might wash a load or two, but overall the usage should be a little bit less than a regular house. And the things that are being washed are generally less dirty. you would hope. And so for this, I would also say every 2 to 3 months is kind of your minimum. Next is restocking supplies. And of course, you have to buy stuff as needs come up. If you run out of shampoo, then you gotta buy a new bottle of shampoo, right? But ideally, if you can do one trip annually to your vacation rental to take note of inventory and buy in bulk and really stock up properly, you have a lower risk of something running out. And also you're able to buy at cheaper prices because you're buying in bulk. And then next we have the battery related items. In your initial setup phase, you would have taken note of what things require batteries. And for things like remotes for TVs or ceiling fans, that's pretty easy for a guest to recognize, oh yeah, this is not working, where are your batteries? And most people wouldn't complain about needing to change batteries there. However, for stuff like your smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors, they have an obnoxious beep when they are low on battery, and it requires someone climbing up on a ladder to change, and it's a little harder, and so we prefer to just avoid needing to do that. My suggestion is to kind of preemptively change your smoke alarm batteries every 6 months. There's obviously some flexibility based on when you're able to get out to the property or when you can ask someone to go do it, but these batteries typically don't last like a full year. So I would aim for 6 to 9 months at the most. The minute monitor in our house has a plug-in charger. It's not just regular batteries, so we aim to do this twice a year when we go visit. Our entry keypad comes with an app, and we can see on the app when the battery needs to be changed. So we could either push this and ask our assistant to come change it, or just change it out when we're there just for convenience. The next one is changing your furnace/AC filters every 3 months. Make sure you order filters ahead of time because we've run into issues with certain sizes being low in stock and the delivery takes longer than we think it should. So it's good to keep a few on hand and set up an arrangement either for your HVAC service technician to come do it or like a local assistant, whatever your method is to get this done every 3 months. On the topic of heating and cooling, I recommend having a technician come out and inspect and service the equipment twice a year. A lot of these HVAC companies actually have these membership/package type of plans where you pay monthly throughout the year, and it includes 2 maintenance visits, 1 free diagnostic, or some other combination. So shop around and see who has good reviews and fits your budget. Here, I think the bare minimum would be once a year. So if you're not going with like a prepaid monthly plan, that would be my recommendation. But in general, these are costly things to repair and to replace. So a little bit of routine maintenance is worth it. They come out, they make sure everything is functioning as they should, and they clean out any drains and system parts that need servicing. Next, we have the deep cleaning type of stuff. Ideally, this is something you already talked to your cleaners about in the beginning, but it's good to have a reminder to follow up. Examples of this include the vent hood, the air vent covers, those get dusty, inside the fridge, inside the drawers and cabinets, sweeping the blinds and cleaning the tops of the doors. Things that are probably not done every time. Make sure you have a system to check with your cleaners at least twice a year, or ask how they can build this into their normal routine so that they would have a rotational list of deep clean items to go through. For the plumbing and water heater, I recommend a yearly inspection. A lot of times the heating and cooling companies actually bundle up their services with the plumbing inspection as well, so see if this is the case for you. But it's good to have some level of maintenance for the hot water heater that could really ruin someone's experience in your vacation home. And routinely it may need some descaling, some cleaning. You'll want someone to check the water temperatures around the house, make sure all the drains are draining properly and whatnot. So once a year I would say is the bare minimum. Next is the water softener. If you have the kind that requires adding salt, obviously have a system to purchase and refill the salt routinely. I'd say at least have someone check on it once a month. If it's the saltless kind, your maintenance is less frequent, but depending on what brand you have, you probably still need to service it every few years. And additionally, some of them kind of have a weird smell, so you may have to have some carbon filters installed. See if your plumbing inspection guy can include this in their checklist. Now moving to the outside of the house, once a year, it's a good idea to have the same tree/shrub/arborist/landscape person come and take a look at your plants again. Spring or fall are both pretty good times because those are the times when you may need to cut back certain plants or mulch the shrub area and whatnot. I personally do this for both the vacation rental and for our actual house because I value the time that I can save. But if you're more of a DIY type of person, I'd say at least every 2 to 3 years have that assessment done to make sure you're actually doing it correctly. Next is cleaning gutters, and to be completely honest, I have never done this for my current house or my previous house or my rental. We're going to our beach house next week, so I will assess the situation and then decide the final frequency. Because from what I've learned, it really varies significantly based on whether you have trees around that shed leaves into your gutters, whether you already have that net that prevents a lot of the stuff from going in. And it seems like places that have winter and snow and with all the debris falling from trees and then melting away, there's generally more to clean up from gutters. And there are people that say they do this 4 times a year even. Whereas in a warmer climate that doesn't even have trees covering and nothing falls into the gutters, a lot of times it's just really collecting like little roof debris, which is really not worth having a person come clean it out very often. So the range I have found on this go from once every few years to a few times a year. So take a look at your own gutters and decide what works for you here. And then regarding the lawn sprinklers, it's a good idea to routinely check in with your lawn person to see if you need to make any adjustments to your watering schedule, especially when the seasons change. I'm mainly using this card as a placeholder to remind me when to go talk to my lawn person next. The fall is a good time to talk to your lawn care person to see if they would recommend aerating your lawn. They have this little machine that would like dig little holes and pull out basically plugs of root/soil. It's also called dethatching, and it helps your grass grow lusher and greener in the next season. So it's a good idea to do this every year or at least every other year. If you have mosquito service through a pest company, you'll need to make note of when you need to call this company to start mosquito service, say in March, and then stop it around, say, October. The months may vary depending on where you live, so check with your neighbors or the company to see what they recommend. And then lastly, this is actually kind of a fun one. I recommend you go test out your own vacation rental. Enjoy the space as a guest, and it's both fun and you are data gathering, right? You are learning what the guest experience is like. Maybe as you lay down, you're like, there is no bedside light, I need to fix that. Or you notice like these drawers make loud noises when they close. Or if the water doesn't drain properly, like it's not horrendous, but you know it could be more optimal. Stuff like that you can only really experience because it doesn't show up in pictures, and people don't always mention these little things in reviews. Either it didn't bother them or they didn't think it was that bad. But you're a perfectionist and you want to make it better than what anyone can even imagine. As you test out this space as a guest, make a list of things that need replacement or repairing or upgrading. And we're actually doing this next week, so I will be sure to report back what we find out and what things we change. During your annual visit to the house to test out the space, also walk around the outside of the house to take a look at the concrete, the driveway, any cracks on the outside of the house. A lot of times you may not find anything, but take some pictures, kind of like a snapshot in time of what this house looked like on the exterior on this specific date, so that in the future, if you notice a crack and you're wondering, did this get bigger or is this new? What is this about? You have previous photos you can reference. Once a year, ideally, you would clean the exterior, so the walls, the windows, and a lot of times it's a pressure washing company that would come and just spray everything down and then dry it off on the windows. I'd say this is especially important in areas that have rain and snow, and as things kind of melt in the spring, there's usually a bit of grime on the windows that needs to be washed off. If it's a personal residence and you really don't care that much about what it looks like, I'd say at least do this every 2 years. Now moving on to every few years type of items, you may want to clean the air ducts, and this is something you'll have to hire a specific air duct cleaning company for. Clean the dryer vents. A lot of times that could be the same company as the air duct cleaning company, so do those together. There are fire hazards to having like a really dirty dryer vent, so to at least plan for cleaning it every 2 or 3 years. I believe the recommendation officially is at least every year. Curtains should be washed every few years. I don't know how often people do it in real life, and we don't have a lot of curtains, and some of the curtains are such a hassle because they're like dry clean or have special laundering needs. cleans, but make note of when they were last cleaned and at least plan for this every 3 years. If you have a wood fireplace, you'll want to make sure to do a chimney inspection every year, and the company will come out and clean / inspect the whole chimney / fireplace area. And then next is carpet cleaning. We don't actually have any carpet, but I included this here because this is something that you probably have to budget for every few years. Whew, that was a lot. I hope I didn't put you to sleep. I found that kind of boring, to be honest, but I'm so glad that I have this system so that I don't ever have to consciously think about when I need to do this, when I need to do that. It's all here and it will prompt me when I need to take some action. I hope this was helpful to you, and please let me know if there's something I missed. I would love to know that. I need to know that. And if there's something that you do differently, let us know too, because each house, each climate is just so different, and the maintenance needs obviously will differ too. And again, link to the Trello board is in the description box below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Bye!